Welcome back to the thrilling crime-solving journey of Xu Qi'an in the Nightwatcher, Chapter 68. The Quarry. The carriage sped out of the city gates, where several fine horses were already tethered, ready for use. Xu Qi'an and his companions switched mounts, cutting through winding paths outside the city. The bustling streets faded away, and in less than half an hour, they were on the outskirts. The 6 riders kicked their horses into high gear, racing toward the towering Da Huang mountain. These official horses really can run. It must be close to 50 miles. Horses in my past life never moved this fast, Xu Qi'an murmured to himself, curiosity flickering in his thoughts. Was it due to the higher concentration of spiritual energy in this world? It was a plausible theory, as the essence of qi refinement relied on harnessing such energy. By noon, they reached the boundary of Da Huang mountain. They halted by the roadside, tying their horses to a tree branch. After munching on some jerky, they followed a narrow, winding trail upward into the mountain. The 6 of them barreled along, crossing a river that flowed at the mountain's foot. After scouting the riverbank for a bit, they discovered several faint footprints about 3 feet long, half a foot wide, and marked by 4 toes. Lu Cheng and 2 associates began rummaging through their packs, extracting bundles of explosives which they distributed to Xu Qi'an and his companions. Center the explosives around the claw marks. We'll toss them downstream while you 3 head upstream. See if we can flush the beast out of the water. This was the plan they'd prepared beforehand. The explosives of the Great Phoenix dynasty were heavily regulated. The formula for crafting them was a closely guarded secret, with the ingredients tightly controlled by the imperial court. Even someone like Lu Cheng, an inspector from the jurisdiction, only knew the bare minimum about their composition, primarily by smell. The 2 groups lit their bundles and tossed them into the river. Boom! The thunderous explosion echoed, sending sheets of water erupting into the air. Soon, the explosives burned out. The group stood at the riverbank, watching the roiling, murky waters and waiting. But nothing broke the surface. It would be great if we had a skywatcher with us. Xu Qi'an sighed. If only they had someone skilled in qi observation, who could track the spirit energy of the beast, pinpointing its location with precision. Tong Dingfeng chimed in, skywatchers are noble figures, far above us inspectors. They only take orders from the emperor. So, don't expect to sway them for a job like this. Noble? Really? I didn't notice. Xu Qi'an scoffed. You wouldn't feel that way if you'd seen the reverence in their eyes when they looked at me. He nodded thoughtfully, understanding Tong Dongfeng's point. After their little impromptu strategy session, Tong Dingfeng shrugged. Looks like it's not coming out. I suggest we head up the mountain and see if there's anything worth finding. Xu Qi'an added, let's check out the limestone quarry first. Lu Cheng nodded, deep in contemplation. The 2 groups split up, one forging ahead while the other followed a few dozen paces behind. Tong Dingfeng eyed Lu Cheng as she walked ahead. That female inspector has some appeal, doesn't she? Just look at that shapely figure. Those strong legs, she could crush a man's spirit just by sitting on him. The temple guards may seem ethereal, but they're frail. True, Xu Qi'an agreed. Plus, a woman who trains in martial arts, she has muscle, curves, and defined abs. It reminds me of my partner back in the imperial court. Xu Qi'an paused, considering. But she seems to bind her chest. That's not good, it makes them look misshapen. Tong Dingfeng was momentarily taken aback, then burst out laughing. You really pay attention to details, don't you? I could use a companion with a sense of humor like yours. Unlike Chu Guangxiao, who wouldn't crack a joke if his life depended on it. For men, discussing women in crude terms was always a favored pastime to pass the time. Chu Guangxiao shot Tong Dingfeng a knowing glance but offered no retort. They approached the quarry, their attention drawn to the mountain stripped bare, as if it wore a human face speckled with alabaster. Years of excavations had left the once looming mountain riddled with hundreds of holes. After searching aimlessly for a while, they found nothing of value. When they gathered for a water break, Lu Cheng remarked, "Dahuang Mountain doesn't just boast high-quality limestone. It's also rich in vegetation. Trees can be harvested here for materials. Quarrymen could easily process it on site as they work, no need to haul it far. Plus, the river flows at the mountain's base, which makes transport easy. Less fuel burned, and efficient use of resources." Another quarryman chimed in. "Which means higher taxes. If they can't collect ore, they risk losing everything," Xu Qi'an muttered. "They should have reported this to the bureau." "Right." Xu Qi'an fell silent for a moment, sighing deeply. Excessive taxation leads to increased migration. The sweat and tears of the people are the tastiest meals for the powerful. Suddenly, silence fell over them as everyone recognized the weight of his words. No one dared to speak further. Clearing his throat awkwardly, Tong Dingfeng changed the subject. "The beast won't leave the water. And we lack numbers to scour the mountain. Do you have any suggestions, Inspector Lu?" Despite his earlier thoughts, Tong Dingfeng held Lu Cheng in high regard, not dismissing her merely because she was attractive. Lu Cheng considered for a moment. "We could split into 3 groups. 2 people form a team to gather locals from the nearby villages. Another team returns to the capital to rally more people for the search. I'll go to see the magistrate and request help from the Skywatchers." "That sounds like a waste of time," Xu Qi'an interrupted, waving dismissively. "Let's pick just one village head nearby. Everyone else stays put." Lu Cheng frowned at this strategy. Xu Qi'an met her gaze. "If we don't find anything, I will take full responsibility to consult the Skywatchers." He gazed at her with unwavering confidence. Would the Skywatchers listen to him? Lu Cheng studied Xu Qi'an for a moment, then hesitated before nodding and sending one of their companions to fetch the village head. Within half an hour, a high-ranking inspector led an elderly man back to them. "I'm Zhang, the village head from Ha Chu, just outside Dahuang Mountain," the old man said, bowing awkwardly and sounding a bit agitated. "We've been waiting for you for ages. The people in my village are starving." This predicament had dragged on for nearly half a year. Lu Cheng addressed him with sharp eyes and an authoritative tone. "Tell me where the people who went up the mountain last time ended up." They went south." The village head pointed toward the southern mountain range. "They crossed the river from that side." Tong Dingfeng raised an eyebrow. "Is there a limestone facility over there?" Since their survey just unearthed a dense concentration of lime kilns not far from the river. Any quarryman would surely avoid that route, lest they encounter the beast lurking on the bank. The village head nodded. "There are a few scattered spots, but not as many as this side." "Lead us there," Lu Cheng commanded firmly. "Yes." The village head seemed nervous under her scrutiny. The group moved toward the south, navigating a rocky, uneven path that made for slow going as they kept an eye on the elderly leader. "This is the place," the village head stated, pointing to an area ahead marked by a series of dirt pits. Remnants of boulders littered the ground. Plants were stripped bare, and shaft-like tunnels appeared, marked for the lime burning process. They searched for signs of life but found the area was already cleared. Tong Dingfeng and Lu Cheng exchanged a glance, shaking their heads in disappointment. Xu Qi'an suggested, "Let's check inside one of those tunnels." They prepared their gear, lighting torches and drawing their blades, proceeding cautiously into the makeshift kiln. Expecting a simple chamber to burn lime, they were startled when they found the tunnel extended far into the mountain. Kilns don't usually dig this deep. This has clearly been created to unearth something. Tong Dingfeng observed, noting the walls bore no soot marks. Lu Cheng pulled the village head close, demanding, "What happened here?" Nervously, the village head stammered, I don't know." Xu Qi'an raised his torch high, scrutinizing the rocky walls before scanning the ground meticulously. His eyes landed on a chunk of white mineral, roughly the size of his palm. Could this be what they were mining? This didn't look like limestone at all. Focusing his energy, he activated his innate abilities, and with a decisive crunch, the mineral crumbled into powder. He held the torch to the powder. Whoosh! The flames erupted suddenly, revealing a curious mix of purple amid the blazing yellow. Was this saltpeter? Xu Qian's pupils dilated as the fire sent shockwaves through the tunnel, prompting the swift unsheathing of blades among his companions. Seeing Xu Qian's antics, Lu Cheng snapped, "What the hell are you doing?" Chapter 69 The Divine Strike. Xu Qi'an slowly surveyed his companions, a grave tone settling in his voice. "This is Blackstone." For the uneducated martial artists among them, the term Blackstone held little familiarity. Tong Dingfeng exchanged glances with his peers, furrowing his brow. Blackstone. Xu Qi'an pondered for a moment. Perhaps demonic blackstone would ring a bell. It's the primary material for crafting explosives. Their faces paled in unison. Explosives were a closely guarded secret, a powerful tool used by the Great Phoenix Empire to assert dominance over its neighbors. Everything relating to explosives, be it the materials or the methods of creation, was under strict control by the Empire. Especially the blackstone itself. Even the average cultivator only understood a smattering about its components. The discovery of blackstone deposits in the Dahuang Mountains and the signs of mining snuffed out any trace of amusement from Tong Dingfeng's face, leaving it steely serious. "We need to return to the capital immediately and report this." The revelation of new mining sites was far more critical than the disturbances caused by the mystical beasts. Lu Tan fixed a steely gaze on the village chief, barking orders. "Bind him and bring him along." To think there were deposits of blackstone in the Dahuang Mountains, and the village chief was oblivious. This was unacceptable. No matter what, he had to be taken back for interrogation. Two guards quickly unsheathed their swords and bound the chief's hands behind his back, escorting him out. The chief had clearly been unaware of the situation. Otherwise, he wouldn't have led them here. His demeanor suggested he was more ignorant than complicit. Furthermore, based on his gestures and speech, it was evident he was not privy to any deeper secrets. An old man with no scholarly background was unlikely to be a master manipulator. But then, could the beast's rampage really be traced back to the Blackstone mine? No, that seemed unlikely. They'd need to summon knowledgeable experts to evaluate when mining had begun before proceeding with any plans. Xu Qi'an collected his thoughts, raising his torch as he stepped out of the cavern, only to hear Lu Tan's urgent warning, "Watch out." He felt a sudden rush of wind. A dark shape launched from the side with such speed he had no time to react. Crash! The chest plate shattered, and Xu Qi'an was sent sprawling, as though hit directly by a speeding carriage. Pain surged through him, and everything faded to black. Caught off guard, his companions reacted in various ways. The three guards swiftly drew their weapons. Chu Kuang-hu kicked the village chief into the cave, yelling, "Get inside and scatter." On a massive rock beside the cave lay a creature, its body stretching 2 meters long, resembling a frog but heavily armored. Jagged horns sprouted from its forehead, and its amber eyes glinted with menace. Its 4-clawed feet poised to strike. With a sudden flick, it launched a black projectile, moving too fast for the eye to track, heading straight for Tong Dingfeng. He narrowed his eyes, instinctively leaning back just in time to dodge a fatal blow. Lu Tan bent low, breaking rocks underfoot, her dual blades spinning to decapitate any threat. The clash of steel echoed ominously. The edges of her blades rang against the creature's armored form, sending sparks flying. In that moment, they could see that the creature's seam was covered with scales. Clearly agitated, it retracted its tongue, its massive form now standing upon the rock, glaring down at them. It opened its maw and let out a bone-chilling roar, sending flocks of birds scattering in panic. Suddenly, Tong Din Fong shuddered, a cold chill running down his spine. Luyen then gun. Grimly, he steadied himself, pounding the hilt of his sword onto the bronze bell hanging from his neck. Clang! The sound rang loudly, like a long-forgotten celestial bell that pierced the air, dispelling the disorienting aura and rousing his companions. With clarity restored, they quickly sprang into action. Lu Tan retreated while barking orders to her elite companions. Use the crossbows to target its eyes, chin, and mouth. Those spots are vulnerable. Tong Din Fong passed the bell to Chu Kuang-hu. You hold the front line. Be careful. Having seen Xu Qi'an's bell shattered, he realized how inadequate such defenses were against the beast's onslaught. His heart ached for Xu Qi'an to have perished so early in his journey, barely a day into his cultivation, was tragic. Shaking off his sorrow, Tong Din Fong charged forward to attack the creature. The beast's eyes swirled with rage, prepared to strike, but before it could unleash its terrifying tongue, Chu Kuang-hu struck it with the bell, disorienting the creature. With all his force, he focused his sword's energy, and the blade hummed through the air, generating heat so intense it warped the surrounding atmosphere. The beast, too massive to evade, lowered its head, striking the sword's arc with its formidable skull. Its tail whipped around, as if it had eyes on its back, crashing directly into Tong Din Fong, who barely managed to brace himself, before being thrown aside. In the fray, Lu Tan seized the moment, rushing forward to stab her sword into the creature's belly, though it barely dodged her strike. Beasts of Luyen then gun harnessed an innate, heightened sense that allowed them to perceive everything around them, granting them foresight in combat, a rare ability bestowed only upon them. Damn it! He almost lost his life right after gaining his powers. This task was becoming increasingly perilous. But as luck would have it, Xu Qi'an, after a brief haze of unconsciousness, regained awareness. He could hear the intense skirmish erupting nearby. Instead of standing up, he crawled slowly, seeking higher ground while remaining unnoticed. He retrieved a small gemstone from his chest, pressed it, and poured out the crossbow and poison from Tong Kan, carefully coating the bolts in venom. Steadying the weapon, he took aim at the beast, waiting for the right moment. Clang! Chu Kuang-hu struck the bell again, rattling the creature's instincts and blinding it momentarily. Xu Qi'an prepared to fire, only to realize the beast suddenly swung around, baffling Tong Din Fong and his comrades. What the hell? You can't just ambush a Luyen then gun expert. After getting a sense of the real danger, Xu Qi'an mentally cursed. The best strategy now was to wait. Let his comrades exhaust the creature, weaken its senses, and then he could utilize the crossbow to deadly effect. However, that thought quickly faded. Lu Tan, like a powerful panther, leapt forth, managing to stab her blade beyond the creature's defenses, striking its belly with precision. Fresh blood painted her blade red, sizzling like a hot iron skimming the surface of water, releasing steam. The beast roared in agony, twisting and thrusting its head back, preparing to retaliate. Lu Tan's expression turned grave as she realized her attack had provoked it. In that moment, a figure dove in from the side, Tong Din Fong tackling her away just as the beast lunged forward, delivering a savage blow that sent him crashing to the ground. Lu Tan felt the powerful embrace of strong arms around her waist, a weight bearing down on her. She gasped, looking into Tong Dinfang's eyes. "You're not dead." Xu Qi'an forced a weak smile. "Almost." Had it not been for Tong Khan's hardwood medallion, before Lu Tan could reply, she spotted the creature's tail shooting down from above. With instincts honed by years of training, she grabbed Xu Qi'an and unraveled to the side. Boom! The ground where they lay cratered deeply. "Well met." Xu Qi'an grinned as they both rose, seamlessly joining Tong Dinfang in their assault against the creature. Stepping back, Xu Qi'an decided against further ambushes. It was time to engage in direct combat. 3 novices stood no chance against a Luyen than gun creature in a test of cunning. But in the end, even this mighty beast couldn't withstand relentless assault, and Xu Qi'an's role would become more prominent. As his companions emerged unscathed from the conflict, Chu Kuanghu and Tong Dinfang's spirits lifted. Xu Qi'an pulled out more venom, coating his blade before tossing it to Lu Tan. "Apply this to your weapon." She met his gaze, retreated a few steps, then smeared the venom before throwing some to Tong Dinfang and Chu Kuanghu. In a stroke of misfortune, just as Tong Dinfang was coating his blade, the beast launched another attack. Its long tongue sliced through his arm, leaving a gory trail. Lu Tan drove her sword into the creature once more. When she beheld the wound gradually turning black, an acrid smell wafting up, her expression brightened. "It works." With Xu Qi'an joining the fray, the 4 of them coordinating their attacks, the advantage became dramatically clear. Despite its strength and unique tongue, the creature's vast size and body structure hindered its speed, allowing them to land more blows. As injuries mounted, Lu Tan suddenly called out, "Watch out!" Xu Qi'an swung his blade to strike the beast's tail in a last-ditch effort to save Lu Tan, only to feel bones snap in his wrist as blood streamed down. Glaring at her, he chastised, "What are you doing? You're a woman. You want to die for this." She met his gaze, for the first time showing vulnerability. "Yeah." The creature trembled, unleashing another wave of mental force through the air, intensifying the chaos. Ready for the next strike, Xu Qi'an and his group stepped back, widening the distance. They hoped to avoid another painful lash from its long tongue. But unexpectedly, after driving them back, the beast took off on all 4s, racing through the underbrush, crashing through trees as it fled. Lu Tan's eyes widened. "We have to chase it. We can't let it escape." If the creature returned to its territory, it would be nearly impossible to hunt it down. Tong Dinfang leapt into action, bounding across branches with the agility of a master martial artist. He propelled himself into the air, surveying the woods for a clear view. Muscles flexed under his sleeve, deepening the tension in his grip on the sword. With a swift motion, he unleashed his blade, a silver arc slicing through the air. Moments later, a pained howl echoed from deep within the forest. Exhausted, he dropped back down. Chu Kuanghu sprinted after him, though his skills in martial arts fell short compared to Tong Dinfang's. His raw strength propelled him close behind, sprinting with reckless determination. He lunged high into the air, bringing his blade down with ferocity, though the beast merely rolled with the blow, shaking him off and continuing its escape. Now only Lu Tan and Xu Qi'an were left in pursuit. Lu Tan was relentless, hot on the beast's trail, refusing to give up. They broke free from the trees, chasing after it until they reached a surging river. With a splash, the creature dove into the water, sending up waves. Frustration flickered in Lu Tan's eyes as she caught sight of Xu Qi'an leaping high into the air. Grabbing the crossbow from his waist, he didn't even take aim. He casually pulled the trigger. In the moment the bolt was released, a powerful energy exploded from it. Lu Tan couldn't even track the bolt's silhouette, only hearing a swift whoosh as it pierced the surface of the river. Seconds later, a miraculous sight occurred. The river turned red as the 2-meter-long beast slowly surfaced, its head impaled by a single black arrow. Lu Tan stood stunned, shifting her gaze to the young cultivator. Xu Qi'an shrugged. I've always had good luck. Chapter 70. Xu Qi'an. I want to go to the Judicial Academy and clear the shame from before, Xu Qi'an remarked, taking a deep breath as he braced himself. He could feel the pulse of a hidden creature beneath the surface of the water, sensing its location with uncanny accuracy. With a steady hand, he drew an arrow from the quiver, aimed, and fired. The arrow sailed through the air, striking the creature's brain with deadly precision. It was a stern reminder of his exceptional skill and sensitivity, a mix of fear and admiration overtaking him. Lu Cheng, who had always prided herself as the formidable chief enforcer in the county, felt a rush of respect wash over her. Witnessing Xu Qi'an's prowess, she surrendered her pride, humbled by his strength and surprising humility. He surpassed all those arrogant men who dismissed women's capabilities without a second thought. Phew! Had the monster not been injured and poisoned, separated by a layer of flowing water, hitting it might have been a different story. Xu Qi'an put away his crossbow with a hint of regret. Designed to protect him, it only had 3 shots before becoming an ordinary weapon. It was unfortunate to have to use such a treasure against a dangerous beast. Lu Qing followed his gaze down to the modest-looking crossbow, but she gasped in surprise. Intricate patterns were carved into its frame, their complexity hinting at its identity as a magical artifact. There was something almost mystical about it, a treasure reserved only for the elite. "So, this is your personal weapon?" she asked, her tone filled with newfound respect. "You really do possess exceptional skills." Xu Qi'an chuckled, slightly blocking her view of the crossbow. "Hurry and pull it up from the water, before it drifts away. You've contributed greatly to this catch." With a slight, hesitant smile gracing her lips, she nodded. Together, they leapt into the river, hauling the monstrous body onto the shore. Just then, Song Dingfeng staggered out of the woods, supporting Zhu Guangshou, both looking worse for wear. "Did you kill it?" he exclaimed, his voice a mixture of relief and joy, as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders. Zhu Guangshou exhaled a long sigh, his expression weary. "I'm all right, just 2 broken ribs," he replied, his voice steady. The 4 of them settled by the riverbank for a moment to rest. 2 patrollers from the refining essence stage led their superior down from the mountain. Upon sighting the slain monster, their superior, the village head, approached cautiously, a mix of anger and fear evident in his demeanor. He kicked the beast, then, surprisingly fast for an old man, he fled. After a moment's pause, when the creature stayed motionless, he returned with furious gestures, releasing his pent-up frustration. Once he was done, the village head knelt before Xu Qi'an and the others, performing an exaggerated bow of thanks. Xu Qi'an waved his hand, cutting him off. "Tell me, when was the mine to the south last worked?" The village head pondered for a moment. "That mine was abandoned many years ago. The terrain is tricky, and not much limestone is found in the area. I'm not even sure when it was last excavated." Xu Qi'an leaned in. "Were there often people passing through that area?" "Footprints were common enough," the village head replied. Xu Qi'an mentally scoffed. "Why not just say there were people, instead of dancing around it with your words? Just go and wait for the magistrate to call you," he ordered. The village head had already been limping from the kick Zhu Guangshou delivered earlier, embracing his side. Lu Qing had no objections to Xu Qi'an's method of handling the situation and ordered a subordinate to escort the village head home. Meanwhile, the others replenished their strength, eating and drinking by the riverside. A moment later, 3 horses trudged down the road, dragging the monster's body behind them. Along the way, Lu Qing animatedly recounted Xu Qi'an's impressive technique, making it sound almost mythical. Song Dingfeng rode closer, lowering his voice. "She seems to have taken a liking to you," he teased. Xu Qi'an smirked. "What do you mean by that?" Lu Qing's reputation as a skilled enforcer in the Six Doors Order of the capital preceded her. She was still unmarried, which wasn't common for a woman of her standing. Most men wouldn't mind taking a solitary path, Song Dingfeng added with a lopsided grin. At this time, Xu Qi'an simply chuckled. "Well, good luck with that." Song Dingfeng sighed. "Someone like me should just stick to my guild duties." Xu Qi'an laughed softly. "So you'd rather traipse along narrow paths blanketed in fog each dawn and dusk?" Zhu Guangshou furrowed his brow, unable to grasp the banter between his companions. "By the way, what was that move you used?" Xu Qi'an inquired. "Skywhisper sword technique," Song Dingfeng answered, pride evident in his tone. "Sword technique?" He recalled Lu Qing using an adept form of blade art in battle. "Wait, sword technique?" Xu Qi'an eyed the sword at Song Dingfeng's side. "It's not a sword technique if you're using a saber," Xu Qi'an teased. "True enough." Song Dingfeng shrugged. "The saber doesn't allow for sword techniques." Xu Qi'an smirked inwardly. Who says the round end of a spear can't pierce? As they continued their playful argument, they spotted a crowd approaching along the road. Leading the group was the village head, accompanied by another patrolman escorting him back. "I'm afraid they want to express their gratitude," the enforcer sighed. The village head raised a basket of eggs high, offering it to Xu Qi'an. "These are eggs from our village, sir. Please accept them. We've been struggling to survive these past 6 months. Without your help in eliminating that beast, we would have had to flee as refugees." Xu Qi'an regarded the emotional village head, then glanced at the gaunt faces surrounding him. "Very well," he said, accepting the basket and securing it to his saddle. The villagers erupted into laughter at his response, emboldened to speak freely, pointing at the monster's body and cursing it furiously. What would happen if he refused their offering? Declaring he wouldn't take a single coin from the common folk would terrify them. Xu Qi'an let out a quiet sigh, the weight of their plight settling on his shoulders. Ellipsis. Upon returning to the capital, the monster's body was met by laborers awaiting at the county gate, who loaded it onto a cart, draping a white cloth over it before processing the remains and moving into the city. The discovery of the phantom mineral mine is no small matter. "We must report this to our superiors," Song Dingfeng remarked, munching on a raw egg. Xu Qi'an nodded, remembering the urgency of their findings. Once they arrived at the magistrate's office, they bypassed report writing and headed directly to Chengfeng Hall to recount their adventure to Li Yuxuan. Li Yuxuan listened intently, a serious expression settling on his face. "Impressive work, Xu Qi'an. You've accomplished a significant feat." He approached the 3 men, adjusting their attire with a meticulous eye, before resuming his seat, deep in thought. "What are your thoughts on this?" The trio exchanged glances, with Song Dingfeng voicing, "According to Xu Ningyan's analysis, the beast was chasing away our patrol, and our investigation revealed the presence of a phantom mineral in the mountains. This can't just be coincidence. Could it be that a more altered body has a better chance for analysis?" Li Yuxuan returned with a question of his own. Song Dingfeng gestured. "That seems reasonable. But for anyone else, killing and solving crimes is just normal." They all looked expectantly toward Xu Qi'an, his insights always sharp. Even though he had just stepped into the refining chi stage, his presence lent a sense of security to the group. What was beyond their understanding naturally drew them to rely on those more adept. Xu Qi'an considered for a moment. Allow me to add that I can confidently assert the creature's intent to monopolize the phantom mineral mine. At first, I assumed it was merely trying to establish a nesting ground in the Dahuang Valley. But from the observations shared on our return to the capital, I've learned it was male. Still, one question remains unanswered. Why was the creature fixated on the phantom mineral? Aside from its use in medicine, it's primarily used for explosives. Of course, the phantom mineral held other properties, but Xu Qi'an knew better than to portray the vast differences between their eras. He instinctively glanced at Li Yuxuan, only to notice the latter freeze, as though an idea had struck him. It's the monster clan. It's definitely the monster clan, he muttered. Without further explanation, Li Yuxuan hastily laid out parchment and grabbed a brush, scribbling down notes. Ellipsis. As they departed the study, Song Dingfeng motioned for Xu Qi'an to follow him. Once this report is finished, we can rest for 2 days. No work tomorrow. You should learn how to exploit the benefits for yourself, he stated cheerfully. Is this a classic case of occupational hazard? Or are we fortunate enough to be on paid leave? Xu Qi'an mused, chuckling at his companion's cleverness. By the time they exited the office, dusk was upon them, and Xu Qi'an had every intention of heading home to rest. Weren't we supposed to visit the Judicial Academy tonight? Song Dingfeng shouted. Xu Qi'an blinked, glancing at Zhu Guangshou, who was keeping pace beside Song Dingfeng. Aren't you hurt? Zhu Guangxiu's voice dropped. The women at the Judicial Academy are quite accommodating. Xu Qi'an clasped his hands in mock submission, shaking his head. I see. How could one abandon social pleasures for a mere broken rib? Not going home didn't seem like a problem. His second uncle, the night watcher, would be on duty all night. And as for his aunt, she barely noticed whether he came home or not. She was far more concerned with her own complaints. Thus resolved, Xu Qi'an opted to join his colleagues for an evening suited to the political elite of the Great Phoenix. Their destination? The Judicial Academy. In his previous life, he'd frequented such gatherings, though they had been social functions rather than anything less refined. In the Great Phoenix, or during this era, brothels were the favored destinations for social gatherings. The insignia of the Night Watcher allowed the trio to bypass the city's nighttime curfew easily. Upon spotting their guild leader, the guards merely asked a few routine questions before letting them pass. Ellipsis. As they strolled into the night, Song Dingfeng grinned. From now on, when you're on patrol, you'll often see fellow guild members in the vicinity of the academy. Just remember to keep one eye open, but if you see them in other areas, it's best not to ignore them. You never know why they're out at midnight. There was once a night watchman who had a feud. He annihilated an entire household in the dead of night. No one could piece together what had happened, and it took tremendous effort to track down the culprit, he explained, offering sage advice. We'll delve into specifics over tea. Xu Qi'an laughed, thankful for such invaluable insights. These internal matters often went unnoticed, and fellow patrolmen caught in envy and rivalry seldom revealed such knowledge. By the way, which establishment are we headed to? Zhu Guangshou asked cautiously. Ying Mai Tea House. Any random place will do. Zhu Guangxiu's response was met with Xu Qi'an's more decisive one, while Song Dingfeng chuckled and clapped Xu Qi'an on the back. The last visit to Lady Puhuang's tea ceremony costs 10 taels. Not only that, but she rarely hosts guests. Tea parties can be a week apart, and when they happen, we'll be lucky to be invited. Supply and demand makes for an expensive attraction. Xu Qi'an recalled that neither of them knew of his past scheme targeting Zhu Lian, and that was a tale best left alone. Who would believe that he'd shared a night with the renowned Lady Puhuang? And a mere innocent evening, at that. Zhu Guangshou added, Lady Puhuang has little patience for our kind. Though not overly verbose, his words held substantial weight, delivered with honesty and good intent. His fellow companions didn't wish to waste money at Ying Mai. Xu Qi'an reconsidered. Let's think of it as an opportunity to broaden our horizons. This round is on me. As a newcomer, treating seniors to seafood was a common social practice. Laughs erupted as no one dared to refuse such a generous offer. Before long, the trio reached the entrance of Ying Mai Tea House. Xu Qi'an gazed upon the courtyard filled with the lively sounds of flute music. Silently vowing, "Tonight, I will wash away the shame from before."
Thanks for listening till the end. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next chapter.